是比漫画案，有时报告稿，
蛮几扎恩。
My name is Rhonda Larrabee, and I am chief of the Kakite First Nation, which is known by the government as the New Westminster Indian Band. So New Westminster is one of the neighboring municipalities of Vancouver. So there's Vancouver and Burnaby and Westminster. So I was born and raised in Vancouver. My mom, she didn't tell me about her past. She wouldn't talk about when she was a child or anything, but we used to visit aunts and uncles on different First Nations reserves in Musqueam, in Chilliwack. They were called auntie and uncle, and they were my cousins. But when I asked my mom how she was my aunt, I said, is she your sister? And she said, well, no, it's just a title of respect. And because my dad was Chinese, it was just known that we had to have respect for our elders. And so we called them auntie and uncle and cousin and things. But when I got older, I asked her again about her childhood. And it was very hard for her to tell me at that time when she told me, which was many, many years ago, 50 years ago. She said that she was actually an Indian woman, and she was ashamed of it, and she had been taken away and sent to residential school. You have heard about the residential school in Kamloops. So that is the school that my mom went to. She was there for 7 years. It was very hard for her to talk about. So then I asked her where she was born, and she said, I was born in New Westminster. When she passed away, I said to my dad, I would like to know more about my mom. And because she was so ashamed, we couldn't talk about it when she was alive. And he said, do it, go find out. So I found out that there were a whole village of people, 400 First Nations people living on the river where my mom lived. And then the government took the land away illegally, unlawfully, and all the people moved away except for our family. And so when I applied to the government and wrote my name, my mom's name, and everything, they said, oh, you belong to the New Westminster Indian Band. So that's how, it isn't a new band. It was always there. It's just that they thought there were no people. So now we have people. We don't have a land base yet. So we're working on that. Like the chief in this new film that's coming out, I also didn't grow up in my culture. And so I'm having to learn about my culture, and I have got lots of help from the different First Nations and my cousins. And it's been a difficult journey, but we are hopefully getting closer to negotiations with the federal government to get our land base back. That's just a brief story about how I found out about it.
年轻时期嘛，学生到前几年嘛，才都是一直都在外面生活，就是外面读书生活。那爸爸走了以后，然后很多老人家一直骂我，其实自己也是惊觉到自己该回家了。
2009年的时候，我们在拍另外一部跟南岛语族有关的片子。那其中有一集就是有谈到台湾原住民排湾族的故事。那当时我们就跟廖头马尼，就因为那部片我们就认识他。那我们当时认识他的时候，其实对于当时他还蛮年轻的，好，大概30多岁，32、3岁。那对于这么年轻的一位头目，跟他聊了以后，知道他从小在平地比较汉人社会里念书长大，所以他说他不太会说母语，小孩也还很小，爸爸也很早就走了， 所以他就是头目继承人就回部落。那我们对于他这样子的一个身份背景，我们也感到非常的好奇，觉得这么年轻的一位乔姐，当时还蛮年轻的，就是女士这样，然后竟然是头目要回去承担她的头目身份，要放弃她可能在汉人社会念书，她本来是一位护士这样，所以我们就感到非常的好奇，所以就开始决定要拍她的故事，想要看一位头目从小离开他的原生部落，他如何回到他的部落来承续他的头目，还有他的文化，甚至如何找回他的母语。
Wondering from director Wei, because we had a director who did a film on our story, and it was called Tribe of One. Our stories are so similar, with the government always being the one who says, this is what you can have, this is what you can't have, you can't do this, you can't do that. It is difficult here as well as in Taiwan. Me, because our stories are so similar, it is just amazing that they are so similar and that our journeys are following the same path. But I would like to know, the chief money, when she went back home to away from the city, was she given a home? Is she able to live on the land that her ancestors were there? Because we were not.
我的原本的部落是老家的土地是在，只是家屋，因为以前的家屋没有用钢筋水泥，没有用很坚固的方式去建造，所以好像是为了要修什么，所以那时候就夷为平地了。那时候爸爸还在。他想说等到他有能力的时候再回去盖老家，我也运气不好，很早就失去他了。爸爸走了15、16年啊，因为爸爸以前就有想说要把那个家建立起来，因为以前我们部落办什么活动婚丧喜庆或者是什么祭，你很多各村各乡的部落都会去我们部落参加啊。每次我们家以前小时候的印象就是大家的家，各村长老头目或者是一些耆老总是会先到我们家嘘寒问暖，因为以前头目的家就是大家的家。然后现在因为我们老家没有了，爸爸也走了，那所以都没有在部落。那老人家看到我了以后，就是常常就会骂我，每次看到我就跟我讲说，五夫就是指孙女就是孙字辈的，一直跟我讲说，或者是一些长辈都会很难过，或者是有的会还带哭，说奇怪，我们为什么都没有家，我们为什么都没有椅子可以坐？老人家常常骂我说，头目不是这样，头目是要有一个家，要给人家休息坐下的地方。我其实这句话一直感触很深，我一直知道说，因为爸爸还在，他也知道说本来就要建立这个家园，然后只是说因为碍于现在我又单亲，然后家里的一些经济都是我要去想办法，所以有时候经济状况没有办法允许我去就是盖家园。我现在住的部分是属于我们88水灾远见的一个地方这样子暂住。其实我的心里一直都还是要把我的老家一定要建立起来这样子，因为你有老家了以后，你很多地方你就可以发挥，就是老人家给我的智慧以后就是要传承给我的下一代。像我储存的文物啊、服饰啊、传统的东西，甚至老人家以前口述留给我，都有给他存档啊。我想说以后把家里建立起来，呈现一个真正头目的一个家，都是大家的家，然后可以呈现以前传统的那个家，也是一个传统的一个学校这样子，就是家庭学校这样子啊，把我们的文化传统继续传承下去。我不在乎人家怎么看，觉得说我能做多少就做多少，我觉得这就是我的使命。
台湾的原住民目前被政府官方认定的有16个族，那16个族里面他们有分散到不同的部落，所以我不确定台湾有多少部落，但是目前有16个族。那我们的主角马妮他是排湾族，排湾族在台湾是第2大的原住民族群，大概有10.4万多人左右。好，那第1大是阿美族。 那台湾的全部原住民大概有57万多人，然后占台湾的人口大概2.44%。其实台湾的原住民族群是很多的，这23个为什么还没有被认定呢？因为要认定一个族群，它需要很多的资讯。你说我是某某哪一族，那它需要一些资讯。那很多族群它可能其实语言已经没有了，然后可能文化也没有了，很多东西它没有办法说提出来跟官方申请说我是什么什么族，所以目前知道已经还有23个，其实他们是没有办法被承认，他们就是他们的族这样子。其实我有问题想请教我们加拿大这位头目，就是他有曾经遇到过他们部落的族人，那这些族人他们愿意承认他们是原住民族，或是他们有意愿想要回到他们的区域里吗？这样。
In Canada, there are quite a few First Nations who live on their ancestral land but are not recognized by the government, and they are fighting for that recognition. Most of the people who were on my ancestral land, when they took the land away, when the government said, okay, you all have to move, they were adopted by other bands, and except for our family and a few other families, some married into other bands. My aunt married someone from another band and she had 9 children, so I have lots of cousins from there. I have another aunt who married someone somewhere else. So there are a lot of our people, but they are already with another tribe. And so even though I had 3 brothers, all my brothers are married, all my brothers have children. I have 3 children, 4 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild. And so all of us together almost make up, we're less than 100, but I have great nieces and great nephews. And so it's not like we're going to disappear. We're going to carry on with the numbers, and that has to be taken into consideration by the government. And so we're hoping that when we do reach some kind of settlement with the federal government, we will be able to move back home. Even though the land is gone, we'll have to find a place at least that is in the territory of where we were. That's what we're fighting for. And it's been a long road. There's like 50 years of work in the community that I've been doing so that the community of New Westminster will accept that, yes, indeed, there were Indians there, because so many denied that there were, and to make them understand that it's our home and we want to come back. We want to preserve the legacy of our ancestors, 400 who lived there, and not let their history disappear. It's not something that should have happened. And so I'm very pleased to find that this Chief Lau is working towards the same thing I'm working on. And it is hard. It's frustrating. She will want to give up sometimes, but don't give up, because it's our family, it's our history, and it's our people. So I hope that she can carry on and know that I'm still doing it. I'm in my 70s, I'm still doing it, and I'm doing it for my children, for my grandchildren, for all the generations to come, so that they know that they were here first.
在外面的社会性别还是有差，像有的人听到我说你是头目怎么有女生的头目因为我们女生又身为妈你要又是一个当家，你要扛起的责任比一般同届同龄的女性还要就是你要去承担的工作，承担的使命是特别要比人家就是要多付出一些啦。对，因为你要想到部落，你要想到家庭，你要想到很多地方。 不是说单单是自己在生活，其实蛮辛苦的啦，真的，因为你有时候家庭上没有照顾到，部落也要想到啊，所以常常忽略到家庭上的照顾，加上经济上也不是很优渥，所以有时候很多地方是很难去做事啦，对。
Every month, the chiefs in British Columbia meet at a designated First Nation reserve. So because I'm a chief and they're called chiefs meetings, I go. 30 years ago, the first time I went, of course, the majority of chiefs were men, and they wanted to know who I was. There were probably 2 or 3 other chiefs in all of British Columbia. So there are over 200 First Nations in BC. So out of 200, there were 3 or 4 chiefs who were women. But now, 30, 35 years later, the majority has shifted. So now there's way more women and way more respect given to the women, because women are considered in our culture to be the bearers of the future because we have children. I think that had a lot to do with the men accepting that we can do a good job as well. And so that has been progress for women in British Columbia and across Canada. I think Chief Money is in Taiwan right now, so I don't know if she can understand how Canada works with the different provinces, because I know I am at a loss of how things work in Taiwan. So we kind of have to learn from each other. So that's why I say there are 200 different Aboriginal First Nations in BC, but over 600 in Canada. It's so different across each province for us. So I would say, yes, I agree. Having a family, having a husband and children and grandchildren, and juggling everything so that everybody is happy is hard. But we can do it. We know how to do it. So I have the support of my husband, my children, and they help as much as they can. If they didn't understand or they didn't want to help, that would be more difficult. They are all very supportive. Yes, the government recognized that there should be truth and reconciliation for the Indigenous people of Canada. What happened was a lot of Indigenous history was woven into the curriculum at school children. So grade 4 children in elementary school learned about the residential school. Grade 10 student learned more about residential school and the reserve system, but we felt that whenever any of the Indigenous people would talk about some of the horrors that happened to our children, to our people, they didn't like it. They didn't want to hear it. And now they are uncovering so many remains of children who died at the school system that they implemented in the 1800s, that finally we think the people of Canada are listening. So having the people listen is forcing the government to do more positive action. And it's going to take time, but we feel that it has to go in the right direction now. As always, we never give up and we always have hope.
这几年政府有在关心现在的文化层面了，因为也在富裕复振，甚至现在学校都有在上母语课程。对，因为怕流失了嘛，尤其在我们这个年代，20-30年前嘛，读书的时候是被禁止说母语的嘛，我们那时候讲方言嘛，所以会被挂牌子的，会被体罚的。以前，所以你看我现在就不会讲母语。这几年政府的确是有在关心有关于我们文化这个层面，然后就是属于传统文化这个层面也慢慢在富裕了，因为真的是老人家都已经慢慢流失了，也都凋零了。那如果不赶快去做传承、做保存的话，以后 可能就是没有人会去，就是很可惜就对了。我觉得现在有上母语课，然后可能现在也我们这个社区也有在做民主学校，那个学校就是体验文化生活嘛，狩猎啊，甚至是种小米啊，母语啊，服饰等等，雕刻这些都有在里面，这样子。这是一般的贵族在穿的。我今天不是盛装啦，因为我现在已经成年生孩子了嘛，可能就要穿的比较朴素，就是像我有今天这样穿，这是比较朴素的。如果说是小姐的时候，还是小姐的时候，因为都要让自己比较华丽，可能就是穿比较亮一点的颜色，或者是比较华丽的衣服这样。这个是我们排湾族的那个基本图腾啊，菱形纹的。我们的颜色都大部分离不开黄绿红这样子，服饰上啦，对，所以你看颜色几乎都是大概是这样子。
台湾现在很多原住民族群，他们会在身份证上附他们的族名，就不是用汉名，在过去都是汉名，所以玛丽的汉名叫廖丽华。那很多人他认同他自己是原住民的话，他会在他的身份证上改成原住民的字，就不是3个字的那种汉名。
There are a lot of communities in Canada that the reserves don't have adequate housing. They don't have water that they can drink. They have to truck their water in. And the governments have promised that they will get water systems into those tribal areas, but they haven't done that yet. They're moving really slow. So there are a lot of things that the government could be doing and they're not. And like I say, now that we have the community behind us, the community of Canada, they are also saying, why don't our Indigenous people have water they can drink? Why don't they have a house they can live in that protects them from the heat, from the cold, from the elements? Because the homes are just not adequate to the standards of what most people in Canada live in. Also, they haven't provided housing for a lot of our Indigenous people are homeless. The government has not provided for them because our community can't provide for them if we don't have enough for ourselves. And so that's also been a big problem. The social issues that plague our people have been ongoing for well over 150, 200 years. And so it's going to take time for us to actually be considered equal citizens in Canada instead of always being the ones at the bottom.
因为以前部落是头目在管理的，那现在因为政府在管，我们变成我们头目的一些权利，或者是很多都慢慢的已经被抹灭掉，就对了，很消失了。觉得说我们有时候很有心要去管理部落，或者是很有心传承这个以前我们有关于我们部落的传统文化与甚至很多衣服啊，像建筑啊，或者是语言啊，或者是很多歌谣啊，还有一些部落的民俗技艺哦。因为现在甚至我们办收获节或者是办丰年祭都已经变相了。有时候我们自己在做，想要再回复以前，想要复振以前的那个就是部落的味道，是很难很辛苦了。因为现在大家都在外面工作，所吸收的资讯啊，都是属于外面的，就是比较比较流行啊，比较现代的啊，然后加上老人家又慢慢的凋零了，都没有人去做一些田野调查，或者是做一些记录啊，我们以前的传统文化这个区块，所以有时候一个人都没有办法有自己的，但是说行使权啊，就是说他们都觉得说，因为他们现在在管部落，我们是地位是已经在被动摇就对了。对于这个阶级制度，有时候因为变形。只有这个是比较有一点没有办法去头目贵族这个制度，阶级制度已经变相了。现在就是有钱或者是有权，都觉得说我就是可以当头目这样子了。 因为以前我们没有什么法律条例，或者是没有什么可以认证说啊，你是当家头目，你是什么头目，你是哪一家的头目。所以像我们这样子，就是秉持像以前老人家传下来的，一直很坚持，就觉得在这个区块就比较欠缺啦。对，因为有的人会不见得不是你家团的人，也不见得会认同你啊，是这样子。对，加上我们又没有很少在部落，因为我们现在才想到要回部落，很多事情是有一点来不及啦，很可惜。但是我会想说，尽自己的能力去支持、去维护就对了，这样子。
I think it's been very informative. I look forward to seeing the film. It will be presented at the Taiwanese Film Festival. I hope you all learned something. I know I learned a lot today. So thank you very much. In our language, we say haichka, haichka, which means thank you.